Hey, it's Jason. Welcome back to Hardy Brothers Outdoors. Thanks for joining me for episode 2 of our John Deere Compact Tractor Buyer's Guide. I've invited Josh to join me today because I wanted to talk not just about the 1025R, but about all the tractors we have and how we use the front end loader with them. So today we've got the 1025R, Josh's 2032R, and my 4052R that we're going to cover. If you're watching this video, chances are you're in the market for a tractor, and if you haven't watched our 10 money-saving tips for purchasing a tractor, check that video out. But now I'm just going to jump into talking about the loader. My first tractor was the 1025R, and when I went in to purchase that, I really didn't see any use for a loader. Couldn't imagine why I would need one. And when I met with the dealer, he insisted that I needed a front-end loader. It's hard to find the tractor without a loader, and from a resale standpoint, I'm going to want the loader. What I found over time is that I'm really happy that I got it. Now, I don't use this loader for a lot of things. We've got the 4052R, so I don't ever have to put myself in a situation where I'm pushing the limits of this. But you know, I use it here and there, but when we get into some heavy stuff, I tend to use the 4052R. But the key is, if you're debating whether to get a loader or not, you absolutely have to get it. And it's so popular. You know, Josh actually just did a poll on our community tab of our YouTube page, and I'll let him tell you what he found.
Sure. So if you haven't seen the community tab on our YouTube channel, check it out. We've got a number of polls out there where we're asking you, the viewers, to tell us a little bit about your use. So in the recent poll, we asked what's your most common use for your tractor, your compact tractor, and we eliminated snow blowing and snow pushing because that was only limited to the people up north. And what we found was the number one answer was front end loader use, so buckets, grapples, and forks. And I think the number was like 39%, and we've had over 160 responses so far. So if you already have a tractor, jump out there and let us know how you're using yours. But let me tell you a little bit about the three different front end loader attachments that I just talked about. And on all three tractors we have buckets, and I think on both the 4052R and the 2032R we did an upgraded bucket with the heavy duty bucket with the loops. And the other thing, so I got those, and I think we both got those when we were making our purchases. Later on, which I probably should have gone ahead and gotten it at the same time, especially with 0%, was I probably should have gone ahead and added the forks. I didn't think I'd ever need the forks. The use case that came up for me was I had a new attachment being delivered from Titan Manufacturing, or Titan Attachments. It was my offset flail mower, and where we live they can't get up our driveway, and they were going to drop it at the bottom of the drive. So I went out and picked up a set of 42-inch forks from John Deere, so that I could just get the attachment up the driveway, off the back of the truck actually, and up the driveway. So we've used it a ton. And the one thing is the lifting capacity of any of these tractors is somewhat limited. So we can lift heavier things with the 4052R, with the 2032 over the 1025R, and we've talked about ballast in the past. But the key thing here is with the 42-inch forks, we can get it into a pallet, we can lift it fine. You don't need to go longer than that because you're going to get your load further out front. And we use this also for moving brush. We've moved concrete, a pallet full of concrete, which we had to take concrete off on all, on both the bigger ones. Still didn't have the lift capacity to move that full pallet of concrete. I've got a lot of landscape blocks that are like 73 pounds each. Again, I think I can move 10 or 12 with this one, and considerably more with the 4052R, but still not a full 54 blocks. So the lift capacity is a little bit limited. I mentioned moving brush, so we've got some videos out there where we're doing habitat work and we're moving big trees that we've pushed over, autumn olive, and a grapple is in our future. So we've got to get a grapple. But the one thing is, if you're going to get a grapple, you need a third function, and that's probably something you want to go ahead and have installed by your dealer as well. I have seen a electric version. I think Good Works Tractors has that one, but I think a grapple is going to be in our future because it would be a lot easier moving some of those trees around. So those are the three things that we're using. Make sure you're lifting within the abilities of the tractor, because that's where bad things happen fast if you're not.
Yep. Yeah, I think the grapple is definitely in our future. We got a number of uses for that. And that kind of goes back to the message I had in the first video. If you haven't seen it, it's about, picking which tractor you need, and it really comes down to your use case. So think through what your use case is, talk to your dealer about your use case, and that's going to help you decide which size tractor you need. We had various use cases. The way we've acquired the tractors, it's been multiple properties, so that's how we ended up with 3 of them. But the reality is the 1025R has worked really well on my small property in West Virginia. The 2032R does pretty much everything we need here in Southeast Ohio, but when we were doing work, these 2 tractors together, the 2032R was way outworking the 1025R, and it was really a burden on the 1025R. So I picked up the 4052R because we're managing 150 acres here. So think about your use case and think about what attachments you're going to put on the front of the tractor. Okay, so let's move on to pricing, and we're not going to spend a lot of time on the pricing, but the loader is an add-on to the tractors. I mentioned for the 1025R, it usually comes standard, but it's going to be in your pricing. You're going to see it there. The price for that at list is $4,393. These are numbers I picked up off the John Deere website, so if they're not perfect, my apologies. I'm going with the best information I can find, but $4,393. To add them on to the 4052R, it's around $6,700. My recommendation, or my expectation of what you'll pay, is that you should be able to get right around 19 to 20% off of those list prices, and especially when it's bundled in with the tractor. So I really don't see a separate negotiation for the loader from the tractor. That's going to be part of your initial bundle. At least that's my recommendation. So that's kind of the ballpark I'm in. Josh, if you want to talk about your experience with yours and any numbers you recall.
Yeah, so on the front end loaders, basically if the 1025R was close to $5,000 and this one was close to $7,000, then this is likely in the $6,000 range. The forks ran about, I think, somewhere north of $400, somewhere around the $500 range. I don't have the exact figure in mind. The one thing I would say is for the products that I've bought after initial purchase, I've been fine with going and buying county line products from Tractor Supply or products from Titan Attachments. The forks, there's not a lot that can go wrong here, so I imagine saving money and buying them later, you have options if you don't pick them up originally.
Great. So from a pricing standpoint, you can find a lot of pricing online. I had totally forgot that Josh had picked up Frontier forks aftermarket versus when he purchased the tractor. So that's certainly an option and something to think about. So if you start off with the bucket and you find out you want other things, there's certainly the option to add them on later. The grapple's a little harder if it requires a third function, so it's something to think about. But yeah, from a pricing standpoint, there's some negotiation room and there's some options if you look at other vendors. From here, what I want to do is jump into things that you should ask your dealer. One of the things that we found was a lot of people, the 1025R is the first tractor that they've ever owned. So ask for a lot of detail about the tractor. Ask a lot of questions. One of the things when you're looking at front end loader, think about or ask about capacity and ask them to really explain how that capacity changes. It's going to be different if I've got the bucket on here versus the forks. So these forks that Josh bought will actually fit on my tractor. It changes the capacity of the tractor. If the weight is inside the bucket, it's going to lift a certain amount of weight. If the weight is out here on the tips of the forks, it's going to change how much you can lift. If you're needing to lift the weight 6 inches, you're going to have one weight. If you need to lift it to the full lift capacity, it's going to be different. So talk to your dealer, get a good understanding for, again, your use case. What do you plan on lifting? I hear people talk about lifting round bales on their farm or big 6x6 square bales. You need to understand, is this the tractor to do that, or do you need to step up to the 2032R or something larger? It's really important that you think through those use cases and properly set the expectations for yourself and get the dealer to explain those things to you, because while it's in the book, you're going to have questions, I guarantee it. So ask about capacities. From there, again, being new to the tractor, there's a lot of details about how these things go on and off. I'll let Josh talk about that.
Yeah, so as a new tractor owner, don't assume that it's as easy as it looks on the John Deere commercials or videos. Some of the hardest things that I've found as a new tractor owner, and this has been 4 years ago, is the simple taking things on and off. I will say with the way that these are set up, taking off the front attachments to the front end loader, super easy. I can dump the bucket and add the forks in seconds. Not a big deal. But taking off the loader itself, a little bit bigger challenge. And so we believe that you should have one, but realize that it's not necessarily just a drop it and go in a few seconds. So on my tractor, I have something called a single connect hydraulic. So there's 4 hoses that allow the buckets, the front end loader, to go up and down and curl. And so you either have to manually change out those 4 or unhook and rehook those 4 hoses, which is what Jason has on his 2 tractors. For I think $700, I had the single attachment, and it's just a handle that you lift up, and it separates, and it's very clean. I guess that's the main thing. Yep. It's very clean to put it on and off. My personal experience of taking off the front end loader and storing it is that I don't hardly ever do that. I think I've done it 3 times. And the reason for that was when I came back, there had been some sag or some pressure relief in the hydraulics, and I could barely get my tractor close enough to get my single connect to reconnect. So I like the single connect, but I have some doubts about it. So that's the main thing about setting it up. So ask your dealer to demonstrate it. That's really the point that I want to make. Don't assume that it's that easy. Ask them to demonstrate it. Now, Jason mentioned earlier that I was going to show you something else during this section about ask the dealer. This is actually something that I've not seen the dealerships carry. And in my recent plowing snow on a gravel driveway experience, I asked for people to give me some feedback to improve my success there. And they recommended the edge tamer. And these edge tamers come from R2 Manufacturing. So a couple brothers that have put together some great products. Looks like they have, I think, 3 different products. These come in different sizes. We went ahead and got 4 of them. We'll probably use 3 or 2 on this one and 2 on this one. They fit all 3 tractors. But this is basically a shoe that goes on the front of the bucket that prevents you from digging in and tearing up the driveway during plowing. If you're moving mulch or something, or gravel later, this is going to help you slide across the ground without digging in. So pretty cool product. We're looking forward to trying them out. They actually have a couple other products that attach to these to help you if you've got long driveways, get your trash cans to the end of the drive. And the other one is to extend the carrying capacity on your bucket. So R2 Manufacturing, check it out. Like I said, we haven't used it yet, but there was a ton of people that recommended it. So I don't think you'll find those from the manufacturer, but R2 Manufacturing has them.
Great. The last thing I'm going to talk about that you want to talk to your dealer about is ballast and adding weight and stability to the tractor. It's probably one of the things that new tractor owners have the least understanding of. As you start lifting with your front end loader, it's going to change the center of gravity on your tractor and potentially create a tip over situation if you aren't careful. So talk to them about ballast, and there's several ways to add ballast, and there's several ways to make your tractor more stable. A couple of them are, you can look at having your tires filled. That adds weight to the back of the tractor. You can put spacers on the tractor. I think, Josh, did you do spacers?
I've got 3-inch spacers on mine that I bought at the time of purchase, and they put them on for free when they put on my backhoe.
Great. You can mount your tires backwards, which is what was done. The rims were put on backwards on the 4052R. That gave me a little more space. You can add wheel weights, and you can add a ballast box to the back of the tractor. So you've got to do, probably a combination of those things. And what you should do is talk to the dealer to understand how much weight do I need to add and when do I need to use it. So ask them to explain it. Again, it's probably in the manual, but what the details I've read in the manual aren't very detailed. So get them to explain it to you. Make sure that you understand how to use ballast, where to use ballast. it's something that you don't want to overlook.
So one other thing, I'm not sure if you said this or not, but you can use your attachments for ballast. So I've got the backhoe on. That's plenty of ballast. That is extremely heavy. People use box blades, tillers, things like that. So if you don't have a ballast box, there's other options to use.
Good point. Good point. And with that, going into ballast, we're really starting to talk about safety. So we're going to move into safety and give you a few safety tips next.
All right. So first off, with the front end loader, from a safety perspective, I'm going to talk a little bit about some travel safety tips. If you're traveling with a load, whether it's in the bucket or on the forks, low and slow. That's what you need to remember. Keep it low and go slow, especially if you're carrying anything heavy or if you're on hills. You want to keep that load as low as you can so the center of gravity stays low, and take your time. There's no rush. That's bad things happen fast. So the other one is, if you're not carrying anything, we see people with these things up high and they're cruising along. You still should keep it low, tips up, and there's actually a lock on the joystick. So what you don't want to do is accidentally bump this or go over terrain that's going to jump up and grab the front edge and stop you instantly. I've seen a few people on the Facebook groups talk about breaking ribs. They were mowing along and that front end just dropped without them touching it, and it stopped them in a second. So low and slow, and use the lock when appropriate.
All right. The only other thing that I had, we talked about ballast already. Ballast is an important piece of safety. We talked about it. You talk to your dealer about it. Make sure you're always using the ballast. The other thing that might be something you don't think about is overhead obstructions. That if you happen to be carrying the load, if you're dumping a load or you have the loader all the way up, be aware of electrical wiring, be aware of door openings, tree branches, anything that you're used to dealing with things at ground level, not 8, 10, 12 feet above you. So if you've got the loader up, first of all, you don't want to be driving all over the place with it that way. But if you do have it up and you're moving a little bit, be aware of those overhead obstructions, because hitting something with that loader elevated could cause a tip over pretty quickly. So safety is one of those things, you just can't keep that top of mind enough. So keep those things in mind. The last thing we're going to do is talk about some negotiation tips. Just a few things you can take with you to the dealer to hopefully get your best deal. Okay, so you're headed off to the dealer. It's time to start negotiating for your tractor. And the key point for me is go in, understand your numbers. The calculations I've done, all the stuff I've looked at on John Deere's site, all the deals I've looked at on various dealer sites, what I'm finding is that I believe you can reasonably expect to get about 19% off of the list price of everything. And you'll see that reflected in a package price. My tip is, don't go in and ask for 19% off, ask for 22 to 25% off and negotiate back towards 19. If you get 17, you've probably got a pretty good deal. If you get 15, maybe there's more on the table, maybe there's not. From dealer to dealer, there's going to be some variation in what they can do based on how much volume they move. But be prepared to go in and negotiate. As you're negotiating, be prepared to change the game. If you're asking for 20% off and they tell you they can only give 12%, you start back and forth. As you're going back and forth, throw out to them, can you throw in a ballast box for free? Can you give me some free maintenance? As you're paying more, as they're coming up or they're not coming up, start asking for some other things. The other thing to keep an eye out for is, there's all the time deals that, buy 2 attachments, get this much off. There's a lot of deals out there. Look around, see what other dealers are doing, and be prepared to take that to your dealer. So my tip is just, negotiate hard, be aggressive, and at the end of it, you've got to decide, do I feel good about the deal that I got? So best of luck to you. Negotiate hard.
All right. Thanks for watching. Hit that like and subscribe. If you haven't seen any of our other content, check that out. In the next Buyer's Guide episode, we're going to talk about the backhoe. So we'll see you then. Thanks a lot, and remember, outdoors is always in season.